It's the boy, Bubba, let's coming through. Hella clutch, flawless, can't be touched. It's your boy, Bubba, let's. Yeah, I need that hot take. I need the truth and everything that is not fake. So tell me.
Welcome back, Bubba Bunch, to another edition of the Bubba Let's Sports Podcast. It is episode 185. This is the Steelers versus Cowboys review. And look, through 9 weeks of football, I don't think I've been impressed by the Cowboys all season long. And coming into this game, like I said, I was expecting a blowout. I wanted it to be a blowout. I wanted it to be like 60 points. That was a tough task to ask for. But I felt that the Steelers were in red-hot form to do so, especially with a demoralized Cowboys team that I felt had no motivation and no grind to get a win this season. You know, coming to this football game, I had no hope. And coming out of it, it's a bittersweet feeling, you know. I'm impressed by some of the play by the Dallas Cowboys, especially defensively. And there's been some outstanding standout players that have really given me hope for the next couple years. But then there's also those moments in this game to where you're like, okay, this is why this team is 2-7. This is why this team always finds a way to lose and shoot themselves in the foot when it makes dumb mistakes like this. And I don't think this was a Steelers win. I think this was more of a Cowboys loss. Cowboys outplayed the Steelers for much of this football game, and they deserve to win this football game if I'm looking at the Dallas Cowboys. But at the end of the day, no one's gonna pat you on the back for a moral victory. They're gonna look at the record and they're gonna say this is a bad football team. And at the end of the day, I still think this is a bad football team. But this game, it kind of showed me some things that I'm seeing progress. I'm seeing development. That's what I've been wanting to see all year long with this Cowboys team, and I saw that yesterday in the Steelers game. So first up, of course, we got to talk about Garrett Gilbert, the new starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, post Ben DiNucci, and yet there is no future for Garrett right now. Once Andy Dalton does come back from concussion protocol and from the COVID list, then he is going to be the starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. But granted, Garrett Gilbert did not play bad. He looked pretty good for coming out of the AAF. He's not a bad quarterback. Now, when we look at his stats, I'm going to pull him up real quick. Garrett Gilbert, 21 of 38, not bad. 243, one touchdown, one interception. Not bad. He had a few rushes here and there, got out of the pocket, showed his athleticism a little bit. It was a little of a contrast for him. He had moments where I felt like he was throwing really good throws. He was accurate. He was finding those receivers that he needed to find, like CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. Found Dalton Schultz a lot in this game as well. He targeted him 7 times. And then there was the moments where I'm like, okay, you sense that there's not much experience from him. It's a little bit too much in the moment, and credit to the Steelers defense, who has been amazing all year long, creating those turnovers. Before this game, the turnover margin was incredible. I mean, the Cowboys are the worst in the league with minus 11, and the Steelers are like top 5 in the league with plus 5. And in the turnover margin in this game, the Steelers were up 2-0 in this game. And it showed that this Steelers defense is so tenacious and so physical up front that Garrett Gilbert just held onto the ball a little bit too long, forced the ball a few times, especially in the red zone. The Cowboys did not find much in the red zone because they were 0 for 2 inside the 20, and the Steelers were perfect in the red zone. So it's tough to say whether or not Garrett was the answer for the Cowboys at that position, because he gave them opportunities to win this game, but he also cost them opportunities to win this game. And it wasn't entirely his fault, but I felt for the bad performance that was Ben DiNucci last week against the Philadelphia Eagles, I think this was a nice refresher to say, okay, it's something we can work on, and it's something that it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. It's a nice placeholder until Dak and until Andy Dalton come back. Now, if Andy just struggles at all when he does come back in a tougher schedule for the rest of the way, they do have the bye week this week, so Andy Dalton should be ready to go in week 11. At least you have that placeholder, at least you have that security blanket of Garrett Gilbert can be a little bit of something. You know, he does have the first team reps, and going forward, you're not desperate at quarterback. Now, I think Garrett Gilbert would have been a whole lot better off if that offensive line would have found an answer to TJ Watt. TJ Watt was all over the place yesterday. And the fact that the Cowboys never seem to give help on that side of the ball with Taran Steele is beyond my belief. Now, so many questions go through my mind on the right-hand side of that line. First off, why is Taran Steele still a starter on this football team? That is blowing my mind each and every week because they feel confident every single week that Taran Steele is the answer. Yet I'm seeing him give up not only sacks, he's giving up possessions by turnovers because of the strip sacks, strip fumbles that are happening to any of these quarterbacks that are under center for the Dallas Cowboys. And it's because of Taran Steele. Let alone the fact that they don't give help to that side of the ball when they have Dalton Schultz, Blake Bell that can chip at TJ Watt or any other defensive end around the league and just give their quarterback an extra half second or second to throw or find anybody around the field. The fact that that's not being done is on Kellen Moore and Mike McCarthy. The fact that they're not allowing that to really be an answer, you know, like it's ridiculous to me that they still find Taran Steele to be a starter, not only for their team, but even be a roster spot for the Dallas Cowboys. And then let alone the fact that you think he's confident and good enough to be by himself. When we've seen it time and time again that he's giving up major plays on that right side. And it's not just Taran Steele. The fact that Tyler Biadasz did go out of this game with a hamstring injury right before kickoff, and Joe Looney had to come in. He did fantastic for not having any reps during the week. I'm looking at Cam Irving, who did all right but could be better. And in the last drive, that really hurt the Cowboys by giving up those 2 sacks back-to-back and just really costing them a lot of yards and an opportunity to stay in that football game. Was it the last drive? I think it was the second to last drive where they had to use those timeouts, give the ball back to the Steelers, and then they got the ball back again for stopping them on 4th down. So it was the second to last drive to where they give up those back-to-back sacks and really puts them in a bad field position. So they're forced to play a really bad game and game plan because of the fact that Connor Williams just got manhandled by Cameron Hayward, and I don't think he should be a starter either. So why are we continuously seeing this bad offensive line play and thinking we're okay with this just because of the fact that it's just a bad season overall? 2020 is not their year, so they don't even want to try anybody else. Look, going into next year, they've already talked about how Lyle Collins and Tyron Smith are going to start in that 2021 campaign. I'm okay with that. I think that it's time to move on from Tyron Smith. Lyle Collins will come back healthier than ever. But we've seen it time and time again that the Cowboys struggle every time they have injuries on that offensive line. I've never seen a team in the NFL rely so heavily on offensive line play until I've seen the Dallas Cowboys. They were so good for so many years. And that's a dangerous game to play when you're so heavily reliant on that offensive line to be successful and to be healthy for that long of a stretch. And when it comes down to the point to where those things start to fall down and that reliancy is no longer there, you're still stuck on the stigma that they're going to be fine. That once all of these guys are healthy, which like year after year, we're not seeing that. And yet you're still so stubborn about it. That's just bad front office and coaching staff decision making. When I look around the league, I'm seeing guys go out. Let's say for like the Green Bay Packers. When David Bakhtiari goes out and they have to replace him, yet somehow that offensive line is fine. And I get it's just one guy, but I mean they did get rid of Brian Bulaga, and they dealt with the injuries on their offensive line, yet they are still a great offensive line because they know how to plug in different guys. And that's not just one example, but it's the first one that comes to mind. And it sucks because you see it around the league to where all these different teams have to switch up the offensive line. They're struggling to find these replacements, yet they don't seem as desperate to find that chemistry on that offensive line like the Cowboys do. So you still have Zach Martin, who's the only one left really healthy from that offensive line so many years ago. And they still think that Tyron Smith's going to be the number one starter coming back at left tackle. And they're fine with Lyle Collins being out for this entire year. And granted, like Tyler Biadasz is going to be a fantastic center for them for many years to come. But there's still so many issues that they got to figure out. And they just don't try. I don't feel like they try enough. Have they brought in anybody to really try them out and trial and error something else on that offensive line rather than just sticking with Taran Steele and thinking, we're just going to rock with it. We're just going to go through the motions with him. It's a lazy decision and it's a lazy thing to do, especially when we're seeing multiple times and costing them multiple games this season by the bad offensive line play by Taran Steele. I digress, though. We got to move on. So then you look at some other things around this Cowboys team, and what I said a few weeks ago, and it's more apparent than ever. I talked about the Ezekiel Elliott trade, and I'm telling you, man, week after week, I'm seeing more and more positive things to say about Tony Pollard and being maybe not the starting running back for the Dallas Cowboys, but I'm seeing him earn his spot to at least split 50-50 the snaps with Ezekiel Elliott. Look, I know it's a stretch and it's a long shot to say that Ezekiel Elliott doesn't deserve to be the number one starter at running back for this Cowboys team. Yet, I'm seeing Tony Pollard work his ass off to get that extra yard, and his ability to gain double-digit yardage on every single run with the same holes and the same offensive line that Ezekiel Elliott does, and doesn't look the same or doesn't feel the same success with Ezekiel Elliott. Why is Tony Pollard not getting enough credit and enough snaps to prove himself on this offense? I said it before the season that Tony Pollard is a guy to watch. I want them to utilize him even more because I felt like last season you got a little taste of what he can do. But now with the league going with a lot of two running back sets and a lot of committee running back depth charts, I felt like Tony Pollard was the perfect guy for that. And I'm seeing him this season play his ass off. And so my continuation for that argument of see what the market wants for Ezekiel Elliott, because I feel like Tony Pollard can be that guy. He's very young in his career. You're seeing him ball out every week. And he has more 10-plus yard runs than Ezekiel Elliott ever since the beginning of 2019. I feel like he runs harder. I feel like he runs faster, more agile. And I feel like he fits more to what this offense is trying to do later on with Dak Prescott. You're saying that Ezekiel Elliott has been the best player on this offensive line, or on this offense. And you may be right. He may be the most talented guy. But since 2017, there's no doubt in my mind that Ezekiel Elliott has underwhelmed his entire career and his contract because of how good he was 2016 and how all right he's been ever since. I'm not saying he's bad because he's still putting up numbers. But what we expected Ezekiel Elliott to be and the contract, the money that we paid him to be, that is Tony Pollard's playing more to that contract than Ezekiel Elliott is. So going forward, if you're not going to trade Ezekiel Elliott, at least give Tony Pollard the same amount of snaps, and I guarantee you he will outperform Ezekiel Elliott the rest of the way. So Tony Pollard, you deserve all the credit in the world, and I am so incredibly happy to see him do well in this offense. That's just one of many individuals that I see working hard on this team. The second, and he broke out yesterday, and in my analysis for the draft class for the Cowboys this season, this was a guy that really stood out to me because he went in the third round. He came from a program that's not really known for defense, but I felt like he's not the best in the world, and he's definitely not an elite defensive tackle, but give him some time to learn, and his agility, his strength for his size is ultimately going to be great for this inside group on that defensive line, and it proved yesterday what he can be in Dallas. He's going to be a crowd favorite. Neville Gallimore really played his ass off yesterday. Impressive. And when I tell you what we've seen, the progression from Dontari Poe and Everson Griffin to what Antoine Woods and Neville Gallimore have done in the last 2 weeks has been a complete flip-flop of efficiency on that defensive line. From going to the worst rushing defense in the NFL to now being in the middle of the pack. It's not going to be the greatest in the world, but that's what this group is. You see Antoine Woods, you see Neville Gallimore, who are just hungry. They're just tenacious on the inside. And you saw moments where they broke through, which is something that Dontari Poe and Everson Griffin never did when they were the starters for this defensive line. Now you're seeing it on a consistent basis alongside DeMarcus Lawrence, alongside Randy Gregory, who's playing his ass off too. I mean, he is slowly but surely getting more comfortable with this defense, and he is just beating guys left and right, like proving that he loves the game and he wants to prove everyone wrong that he deserves to be in the NFL. Randy Gregory, I know I've really kind of been back and forth about Randy and whether or not he deserves another chance after another chance. But this time around, I feel like this can be the best stint that he's had in the NFL. And I hope this is the last time that he has to go through all of those suspensions and he can finally get comfortable. You know, his mental game is there. It shows on the field. So I hope that this is a long-term solution for the Dallas Cowboys. But we're seeing Aldon Smith and Randy Gregory really do well. Dorrance Armstrong's finally getting more snaps. I know he's not really getting the spotlight and he's not, showcasing his abilities all the time. But, once we add on Bradley and Nye to this group of guys, this is what the group should have been all along at the beginning of the season with those different guys like Dontari Poe, Everson Griffin. And when Gerald McCoy hopefully comes back next year, I think the defensive line, now that they're finding more success with Antoine Woods and Neville Gallimore, this can be a group that is sustainable in games. This can be a group that like the Green Bay Packers can be, to where they're going to give up a lot of yards. But I feel like this is where the league is going nowadays, is where you don't have to have a Steelers defense that creates turnovers left and right. But I'm seeing a Green Bay Packers team that, prevents, contains, and bends, doesn't break. That I feel like this is the only way that the Cowboys can really succeed on defense, because if they give up those big plays, then it's over. But if you can prevent those big plays and stop the run on the inside, then you can give up those little dump passes, little out routes, go for 3 or 4, and then luck out on a 3rd and 5, 3rd and 7, because you're self-sustaining, and you don't just get run through by everybody. Felt like yesterday was a really good performance for that Dallas Cowboys defense. Finally, I felt like there was progression all along that defense. And other than the secondary, I felt like that defensive front was pretty good, except for Jalen Smith. I know those penalties where it was the illegal contact that shouldn't have been called, and then the roughing the passer that was, it's the right call, but it's a stupid rule. I felt overall, though, the way that Jalen Smith is graded is a bad way to really make an argument for a guy that doesn't deserve to be a starter on this team. Now, like I've said before, he can really be a good depth guy around the league, but if you're relying on him to be the guy, I felt like yesterday with that illegal contact and just some plays where you felt like he was lost, and this is happening pretty much every game now. The fact that they didn't have Joe Thomas yesterday really hurt him. Leighton Vander Esch is playing very well. He did have that personal foul call, which they're going to call every time. It's nice to see Leighton Vander Esch be out there and play really well. And hopefully he can stay healthy. It's the same thing with Sean Lee. If he can stay healthy, they're going to be fine. But going forward, Joe Thomas should be the guy alongside Jalen or Leighton Vander Esch, excuse me. Yeah, man, I'm just so over Jalen Smith. It's just not it anymore. And I guess you can say that those penalties are a reoccurring thing. It may be unlucky, and it may be just a very bad place, wrong place at the wrong time. But when it's happening almost every week, I just don't understand. There's got to be some reason why Jalen's just playing this bad. There has to be a reason. I really don't understand how you can digress that poorly, like that significantly. I really don't get it. I really don't. Who played well as well? I don't know. I think that's pretty much it. And this was kind of like a weird one. I'll tell you what, though. I think I have like a stomach bug because I've been sick since like Tuesday. And I was going to do the preview for this game on Friday. I literally spent an hour trying to do a podcast, recording one, and I had no energy. And I'm still feeling the effects today. So sorry if I feel or I look a little off. But, I mean, I just watched that game and it was a bittersweet feeling. Special teams played very well. I will say that. John Fossil did a great job. Finally. I've been waiting for this type of performance all year long from John Fossil. And that dime by Cedric Wilson on that fake punt return where he threw it across the field and they got really good field position out of that. Man, Cedric Wilson is just a nice tool to use on this special teams unit and just around the football team. They almost blocked a few field goals. They did block one. But Tyron Crawford somehow just comes out of nowhere and has the athleticism of a gazelle and just jumps the line on every field goal, which is nice to see. Greg Gilbert's kicking like he's only got like a week to live. I mean, he's doing really well. They finally scored a touchdown yesterday. So there's positives. And I will say, it was very impressive to see them play this well against a really good football team. I think they underestimated the Cowboys. And they didn't expect them to come out this hot. But I do feel like the Cowboys shot themselves in the foot. Garrett Gilbert played well, but there were some moments like the interception in the red zone. I was like, dude, that's the one thing you couldn't do. And you did it. CeeDee Lamb fumbled as well, which was tough to see because he was having a really good game. And he wants to really, play well for this football team. You see it. He has the heart and the passion to become one of the best wide receivers in this league, and he wants to give it all for this football team. And the luck's not there. I said it before the game. I was like, this Cowboys team's cursed. I really do think so. I know I have no analysis to back that up, but I mean, can you really blame me? I think at this point, they're cursed. They really are cursed. I don't know. I mean, penalties, seven penalties for the Cowboys of 70 yards. Steelers only had 3. Big Ben was injured in this game, but it didn't look like it. Cowboys didn't have any sacks. And they played well in the running game. Yeah, James Conner was pretty silent in this game. He only had 22 yards. They only went to him 9 times. Oof. Yeah, I mean, what are you going to do? I felt like the Cowboys were due for one like this, where they just played their hearts out. They played really well, but they just come up a little bit short. So, does that really mean anything going forward? I don't think so. I really don't think so. It was nice to see them give a little effort. You know, do a little dance, make a little love. They got down tonight. Other than that, though, we'll see. We'll see. Who do they play next? I'm really low on energy. I will say that. Who do they play next? Play Minnesota. Oof. Good luck, Trevon Diggs against Justin Jefferson. Sadly, folks, I think they're going to lose that game too. And then it's a rough stretch. Actually, not as bad as I thought it would be at the beginning of the season. So it's Vikings. You visit the Vikings. You're probably going to lose that game. Then they host Washington. After how bad it was the first time, I don't know. You're going to lose against the Ravens. You're probably going to lose against Joey B and the Bengals. The 49ers, I mean, they can have their 5th-string quarterback come out and play well. So I think the 49ers win that football game. They won't beat the Eagles, and that'll really just close out the season. And then you're at the Giants, who, stayed with the Bucs, and I think the Giants are not what their record shows. I think they played better than what their record shows, so I think they win that football game. So honestly, I don't think the Cowboys win another game this season. But going forward, Mike McCarthy is the guy. He is, what's the word? Unequivocally, what's the word? I don't know. I think I'm done. He's definitely the Cowboys coach for next season, which is the right move. I think this season's just a shit show. And if you come back the next 2 seasons with everything intact and you don't really have the excuses you had this season, which shouldn't be excuses, but for the Cowboys, they always are. If you come back the next 2 seasons and you're very underwhelming, then Mike McCarthy has to go. For Mike Nolan, I still think they should get rid of him, but, I mean, going forward, if they play like this, if they play like they did yesterday, they'll be fine. I think they'll be fine. They won't be great, but they'll be fine. Just, you know what? I just want to see Tony Pollard just ball out. Can we just make that happen? Like, I'm really done with Zeke. I really am. I'm sorry, people, but I've just given up on Zeke. I'm ready to let him go. He's just not the guy anymore. He was my favorite player. He was my favorite player in 2016. And now I'm looking at the guy, and I'm looking at a guy that it's just there. I'm not seeing a $90 million guy. But I am looking at Tony Pollard, who, the cat can ball, man. Cat can ball. I'm zoning out. Well, this is going to do it for this episode of the Bowlet Sports Podcast. Winners and losers tomorrow. We're going to do the halfway mark of the season, which we were going to do last week, but of course, things didn't fall through. We're going to look at our predictions from earlier in the season. We're going to look at where we are now in the awards and teams overall. We're buying or selling. on certain teams. And then there's no preview for the Cowboys this week. Thank God, because I need a break. So then we're going to look at some other games around the league and what we're really anticipating going forward. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And we'll see you next time on the Bubble Sports Podcast.
Yeah, hold on. Tell me who's your top 5 quarterbacks right now, dead or alive, huh? And how much do you care about a ring if the best player